thank you for doing this today. It is very much appreciated.
Oh, no worries.
No, as I was saying, obviously you were talking earlier on, before we came on about the baby and so on. Just to say congratulations on becoming a dad in September, and how are you finding that transition?
Thanks. Yeah, no, it's I know that you hear all these cliches, and obviously, we had people tell us over and over again, like it'll change your life, and it's going to be the best thing that happened to you, da da da, and you sort of become numb to it because you hear it so much. But the reality is it is, it's a fantastic feeling, and he's come out, he's perfect, and he's like, yeah, he's your whole world revolves around him now, and
Yeah,
that's but it's been fun, and it's been really great to be able to spend so much time with him. It's been the one kind of positive that can, that from TNA taking a bit of a hiatus, that
yeah,
I've been able to sort of pick and choose a few independent days while still getting my TNA salary, and it's been a real blessing to have all that time with him, that and to sort of just see him develop, and just kind of devise our new system. We just Mickey just had her first match back. She did WrestleCade, and she did in North Carolina, and
yes.
then I did PWX that night and stuff. It was and it was great. It all went fine. We're just figuring out how to how to make it work, and it's been really great so far.
You say about obviously choosing a few independent dates, and obviously you were across here a couple of weeks ago in Belfast for wrestling.ie. How do you now this you may be slightly biased being from the UK, but how do you find the UK fans versus the American fans, if you know what I mean, the reaction you get?
Um, I haven't. Yeah, I mean, I haven't done a ton of US independents. I've done a few. I thought PWX was good. Like they had a really good crowd.
Yeah,
They knew their wrestling, but they still kind of wanted to participate, which is always the best kind of blend. And then in the UK, it's like it's the same kind of thing. It really depends on like what market you work in, but generally, I enjoy the UK independence a little more, just because I get to see so many of my old friends who I don't get to see as much as I'd
yeah,
like, but also because Brit fans, you know, at least for the time being, they're not as spoiled yet. They're not, they don't have that sort of sense of entitlement that sometimes you get with some American fans. And I don't mean to disparage the American fans. Like they don't mean to be, but they've just been given so much, and they've been told so many times over and over again that they're the most important thing, and they're
yeah,
part of the show, and that wouldn't be their business without them. And like, while there are elements of truth to that, unfortunately, a lot of fans start to take that the wrong way and start to become, a little entitled, and sort of forget that the whole point of it is that we're supposed to take them on a journey, and you're supposed to suspend your disbelief, and
yeah,
if you're deliberately going to not do that and kind of make it more about you or your little clique of guys, it can be difficult, and I feel like sometimes those small kind of pockets of fans sometimes ruin it for the vast majority, which
yeah,
is not, which it's just one of those things you have to just kind of, the funny thing is that I've always maintained that those kind of fans, the ones who believe themselves to be sort of superior to other fans, even though everyone pays the same price for a ticket,
yeah.
I always find that they're the ones who are easiest for me to work, actually, because all you have to do is, it's pretty easy to push their buttons, Although and the irony is that I think sometimes in wrestling now, especially in TNA, you sort of become a victim of your own success as a heel, because the best way to get heat as a heel, with TNA is to go after those kind of fans, and then it's almost like it gets forgotten about that you're supposed to be a bad guy, So, like, so then they're sort of surprised when when all these fans like tweet that they don't like you, or that oh, you suck, or whatever else, and like they take it seriously because because they've sort of forgotten the fact that we're supposed to be driving the car.
Yeah. I mean, I have about 10 years or so on you, I think, and I grew up obviously here, watching World of Sport and so on, which you would probably have been the generation that grew up after that, with
Yeah.
Sky or whatever. But what attracted you into wrestling as such? What got you involved in it?
Well, when I was a kid, like a small kid, we didn't have Sky, we didn't have
Yeah,
satellite TV. Um, we just, but I was still completely familiar with the WWF, and that's really a testament to how incredible their marketing is.
yeah,
Because even though I never really watched it on TV because I didn't have access to it, it was like I still knew who everybody was. I still knew, what everybody looked like, what everyone's name was, what their
yeah,
finishing, because I had the annuals and the action figures and the ring that made the noises and all that sort of stuff. And for me, I think and I think most Brits would be the same way, that you were, it was, I was a huge, for me, Bret the Hitman Hart was kind of, he was held on the same pedestal as like superheroes
yeah,
and like, Teenage
yeah,
Mutant Ninja Turtles and stuff to me. Like that's I looked at him as like this hero, he was like a real hero. Um, and that was sort of me. That was my earliest memory of me just being a 100% just a fan. And then probably around 1997, 1996, 97-ish is when I started to kind of get back into it. When I first saw, like, when Shawn Michaels and Triple H first started doing DX
yeah,
and all that. So that was when I first started to kind of, like, a few of my friends were going like, "Have you watched wrestling recently?" And and I was like, "Not really." Like, here and there, and they'd be like, and it was like, "Oh, you should see what Shawn Michaels is doing now. He's totally different," and all this kind of thing. And that was like the first time where it started to like pique my sort of rebellious teenage kind of interest. And then I was privy to some of what WCW were doing, like the NWO and stuff, but they never really had a very strong TV presence in
yeah,
the UK.
yeah,
Always kind of perceived as like, I remember like as a kid, people arguing at my school that WCW was like a copycat WWF, like which is not true at all. But like that was the perception, was that like, and like that, some people didn't even believe that that was really Hulk Hogan in WCW, like pretending to be Hulk, because he was like, he looked so different,
yeah,
and but people saying like, that's not Hulk Hogan, like that's a fake Hulk Hogan, you know what I mean? And it was like all these crazy rumors, that would fly around, like, so yeah, it was very much a WWE fan. And then by the time Stone Cold got hot and The Rock, you know, broke out, that was when I was like, this is more than just a thing I like
yeah,
now. Like this is like this encapsulates everything that I sort of hold on a pedestal in my life. Like, because I always I was a skinny kid, so I always wanted to have a good physique, and then I loved sports, but I also really loved entertainment. So it was
yeah,
like, it was the perfect way to, I looked at this and I went, I can still be an athlete, and I can still have this, male body image that I want, but I can also be an entertainer and be like this, large in life character. And just, back then, like, they were doing such great business, they were selling out 15, 20,000 seat arenas every single night, and they were going nuts. And it was like, when you see that on TV, you just go like, that's what I want to do. I want an arena with people scream, and that was pretty much it. After that, it was like from about the age of 13-ish, like that was, it wasn't like 100% saying like, I'm going to be a wrestler, but it was like definitely formulating in my head that was like what I was going to be working towards.
yeah. I mean, you first came to prominence, obviously, in the UK during the reboot of Gladiators. Now, it would
Yeah,
be remiss of me to ask. I mean, were you? I mean, were you a fan of the original, like
I
John
was. Yeah,
Fashanu Wolf version and all that? Yeah,
I was. Yeah, like it was like, it was part of that Saturday night lineup. It was
yeah,
like
yeah,
when I was a kid, it was like Friday nights. Me and I used to swim. I used to swim competitively. And I got
yeah,
to a point. got to the national championships,
Okay.
and it was like, so we used to swim. So we used to practice, like, at one point I was going like 3 times a week, but Friday was always like the night where we'd go swimming, like, just for fun. Like, me and my brother would just go, like, for, just for fun, right?
Yeah.
And that was like, Friday night was always like swimming, and then fish and chips, and like Top of the Pops and whatever, you know what I mean, what it would be. And then Saturday was football, football practice, or or a game, depending on what on what team you, or whatever. And then that night it would be like blind date.
Noel's house party.
Huh?
Noel's house party and the like.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Noel's house party. Yeah, blind date and Gladiators. And it was. I remember thinking Gladiators was awesome.
Yeah.
I remember going to. I didn't remember it until my mum like reminded me of it when I got the part on that show. But like my local like leisure centre like used to do this thing in their gymnastics thing in the summer holidays called Junior Gladiators.
Yeah.
They would devise like makeshift versions of a lot of the games and stuff over like the balance beam, over the foam pit, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was always something. Yeah, it was a really. I was actually wrestling full time when I got that gig, and not a lot of people know that, but like, I broke into the business in I forget what year it was. It must have been, I want to say like 04 or 05.
Yeah.
Like when I first trained at Paddy Knight's school and then. But back then, like, Ricky and Julia were just doing like weekend camps, and they would do like, they put me in a couple of battle royals, and then like a couple of like 6-man tags and stuff like that to kind of break in. But they had, that, and then I was 17, I think, and I remember like. But I think by the time I was, I started going to drop kicks, and like I started getting booked in a few other places. Like I got booked for like Premier promotions and stuff like that. And then I think I was just about to turn 19. I was like 18 or 19, and I started working for Brian Dixon.
Yes. Yeah.
So by the time Gladiators came along, I was like, when the thing first happened, I think I was 20 years old, and me and Tom Latimer, who's now Bram in TNA, like we were on the camps together, and we were like, we were like the two sort of token young guys. Like we were, and we were like for most of the year we're doing like 6 days a week. And I got this like little acting part in this like little weird like motorcycle show thing, and then the director for that was like he also had a little agency that sort of specialized in like stuntmen and like specialist sports guys and stuff like that. And he kind of said, hey, like if something ever comes up, I'll keep you in mind, and never heard from him again for about a year. And then he suddenly called me and was like, hey, can you swim? And do you know how to climb? Like, can you climb, like rock climb, climbing wall? You do this and that. And I was like, yeah, I'm a pretty good athlete, like all around. And he was like, oh, good, because they're bringing Gladiators back, and I got you an audition. And I was like, I didn't think I would get it because I was so young. I was like 20 years old. And I just went like that. Me and Tom got an audition too, and we went, and we kind of just said, well, it'll be fun, and at least we'll have a story to tell or whatever. And we just thought, well, if we get it, we get it. And then it was just one of those things where we both got to the callback, and then just the thing that set me apart was they had us do like entrances and promos, and and I'd always been comfortable on the microphone, whereas a lot of those guys in those auditions were not, even though they looked great and were and had a lot of had like good charisma, but just not when as soon as the camera went on, they just went pieces because they just weren't used to it.
I mean, you just shortly after that, obviously a year or two after that, you signed for TNA in 2008, and right off the bat, you were given a good push, a real decent push as a young guy in the industry. How good of a feeling was that to really have a company start to put momentum behind you?
I didn't honestly. It's hard to say because I didn't really know any better. You know what I mean? Like I didn't really know. I didn't really know what was a good. I knew that I was getting well featured, but at the same time, I also knew that I was nowhere near ready.
Yeah.
Like I was signed at TNA by Terry Taylor, and I was kind of between Terry and Dixie, I was kind of given the impression that like they would sign me and they would do these like. They were going to do these vignettes, and they were going to sort of do that. They had this character and stuff all laid out for me, and they had this great story and all the rest of it. And I was the one who sort of said, like I'm 21 years old, and I'd only been in the business for like a couple of years anyway. But then even then, I hadn't wrestled for like 8 months because of Gladiators.
Yeah.
I said like I'm not, It's like I appreciate you signing me and wanting to obviously like very pleased about that, but I don't think I'm going to be very good. And they were just like, don't worry about that, don't worry, like we'll protect you and like we'll have you train, we'll train you, you know what I mean? They had all this kind of, and then it's and then it was like I debuted on the UK arena shows on that tour, and like next thing I know, I'm at TV and I was just kind of immediately put into all these kind of. Yeah, and I mean, every single day I was just going like, just kind of going along with it and just not really, I didn't, because it's like, it's hard to explain, but it's such a different, to go from independent wrestling and not just independent wrestling, but like British independent wrestling at the time. And, really, with the exception of, like, I'd wrestled Gangrel one time, I think, and I'd worked with Carl Ouellette, who was Jean-Pierre Lafitte.
Yeah.
I hadn't really wrestled... and I had done a couple of tags with Bryan Danielson, or Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
But he hadn't been on TV at that point either. So it's like I hadn't really been in the ring with that many people who were that experienced in like the TV wrestling, and so I had no idea like what an agent did. I had no idea like what like what any of the stuff meant, and like all these these things they were saying to me, and like all I was just having all this stuff sort of thrown at me under the assumption that I knew what it was, and I had to remember, like constantly sort of getting guys like Road Dogg and going like what does this mean? Like pointing to something on the format or something, and he's like, oh, this means how long you've got. You know what I mean? And I'd be like, like I don't know how any of this stuff works. Like I tried to tell him, like, and it was, it was always kind of, I was just thrown in at the deep end completely, and luckily, I got eaten alive by the audience, and I deserved it. And luckily, they had the foresight to bring in Doug and make us into a tag team, which then allowed me to completely grow and develop as a performer.
That's funny you say it. Literally, this is the next sort of point. I was looking down the stuff that was written down. I was just going to say you became part of the invasion, obviously with Doug and with Rob, and obviously, in my probably slightly biased opinion, I always felt that as a group you were underutilized at the time, although it did seem to help you develop and grow as a performer and within the company again.
Yeah, it was the thing with no, absolutely, and like Doug, Doug deserves so much of the credit during that time because he pretty much like. Because he was new to TV wrestling as well, but obviously was so skilled in the ring and was so familiar with a lot of the talent there that he was just obviously a whole different in a whole different league. But it did give me a chance to sort of go, like to explore. Like I knew. Like here's the thing: I knew where I was good and I knew where I was bad, and I think that's one of the reasons why I've survived and progressed, like I have, because I have self-awareness.
Yeah.
Like I know where I'm good and I know where I'm bad, and I know where I need improvement, and I'm always learning. Like I'm always stopping, and I still, like I remember I would constantly be getting in the ring with guys like Alex Shelley and AJ and even Joe on occasion and Doug and stuff, and just like AJ would always have like, he would always come to me and have like ideas for me, like, oh, have you ever thought about doing this move? Like, you know, you're pretty athletic, you could do this, you could do that, you know, and like doing the British Invasion stuff. Obviously, we got over, which was the most important thing, but also which then gave me the chance to. It gave me confidence, which is really like half the battle. It really is. And I remember, you know, like, I mean, people forget that, like, in my first year, like, I suddenly out of the blue, I was booked in a TV Impact main event with Sting.
Yeah.
Like, really for no other reason other than the fact that, like, we were kind of semi in a group kind of feud, you know, like the British Invasion slash other heels, you know, were kind of working against all the other kind of white meat baby faces, and it was just one of those things where they just went, oh, let's put him in there with Sting. I think Sting, you know, took a liking to me very early on, and I can't express enough, you know, how you know, absolutely you know, beneficial and important that was to me. The conversation, Kevin Nash as well. Like, after I had that match with Sting. You know, Jim Cornette, who I have a lot of respect for, and I get on with now. He was not necessarily on Team Magnus. You know, when I first showed up, and with good reason. I didn't fucking belong there. You know, like, I didn't know a fucking headlock from a headlight. but you know, so, and I remember Jim Cornette was the agent for the match with me and Stinger, and he kind of talked to me like I was somebody going to the electric chair. Like, he was like, well, you know, I guess we'll have to camp this, and we'll see you on the other side. You know, like, basically saying this is going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
But Sting had already given enough of a vibe to me, like, during the few conversations I'd had with him. I remember he'd come over to me once at catering and just sat down with me, and I was like completely like stumbling over my words and starstruck. And the thing is, I am still like that with Sting even today.
Yeah.
Like, I still find myself like being really nervous and like talking too much, or, you know, or stuttering and stuff. But I remember him just coming and sitting with me, and he gave me that vibe of like, I'll let you know. He never said it directly, but I got that vibe from him, like, you know, you don't have to, you know, you can have some ideas with me. You know what I mean? Like, you can you know, you can be yourself, and I want you to like think, you know, like, I'm not just going to tell you what to do. Because I remember Jim coming, like, Steve and I had sat down actually during that day, and when I basically found out I was wrestling him, thank God I found out like a couple of days before. I basically went back and watched every Flair match with Sting, because I just thought of like what kind of heel I was, you know, and who Sting was, and I thought, I'm basically going to bump and sell, and, you know, and let Sting be Sting, and, you know, and I'd kind of had it inferred to me, because like, he had a match with Joe at the pay-per-view the night before, which had not necessarily been exactly what they were looking for. They just, you know, it was just one of those things where they just didn't click. Because they're both obviously incredible performers, but it was just one of those things where it just didn't quite work. It had been kind of inferred to me by some of the people at the office to be like, you know, this has to be good. Like, Sting needs to get back on track, kind of thing. So I basically just said, I'm gonna just let him do all of his stuff, and I'm just gonna bump and feed, and, you know, and sell, and be him, you know, and kind of get over by, you know, with my character, and just kind of, you know, just know my role. I knew my role, you know what I mean? And it was only a very short match. It was only a few minutes, you know, but I basically gave it, you know, let Sting go all his greatest hits. You know, I got a little, you know, I got a few bits in, and it was like good for me, good for him, good, you know, good all around. I came back, and like Terry Taylor, like, because Jim Cornette beforehand, it's like me and Sting I had already sat down with Sting and said, well, I was thinking we could do this, and I was thinking about this and that. I watched your match, you know, I loved your match with Flair in 1990. It's always been one of my favorites, which is true. And I said, you know, so I thought maybe we could do a couple of things like that, you know, like this thing and that thing, because I wanted it to be where like it was instinctive for Sting, so it was like he didn't have to think too hard. He could just be himself.
Yeah.
And Jim Cornette comes over and was like, all right, he looked at me and was like, all right, kid, keep your mouth shut and your ears open and maybe we'll get through this. And Sting was like, kind of reprimanded him a little bit and was like, actually, Jim, like, he's got some really good ideas and I pretty much want to do the match like that we've already discussed. And he was just kind of like, oh, okay, well, all right then, you know, and with that, obviously then it ended up being a good piece of business, and Cornette was happy, but that was the day, that was the first day that Kevin Nash came and talked to me. Like, he walked over to me and was like, in only, you know, Kev is like the coolest, you know, like he speaks in sound bites, like he doesn't have to say very much. Everything he does say is like completely poignant and you know, memorable. And he just walked over to me and was like, hey, saw your match with Stinger. It was a good job. I'll be talking to you again. And I was just kind of like, oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Nash. You know, like, but then he, you know, after that, he was very, very good to me. And like Daivari became one of my best friends. And he is as a wrestling mind, Sean Daivari is so underappreciated. You know, is really unknown as far as like how smart he is.
Yeah.
And there are I find quite a lot of parallels with he and I, because he got into the business super young too, and obviously his position at like 21, 22 was, you know, vastly different to mine. You know, he was working with Hogan and Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but to a certain extent, it was the same kind of thing where he was just kind of given this, you know, opportunity and like thrown in at the deep end. But Sean, you know, we became good friends, and we even lived together for a while. He was my roommate for a while and stuff. And he has a lot to do with me learning and picking it up so quickly, because that was the thing that kept me, you know, that was the thing that earned me my sort of respect, was that, you know, with a lot of the talent, was that like they went, okay, you know, I had this perception of like, there was this sort of perception of me that like I was like Dixie's guy, or that, you know, that one of those things. But, you know, and Dixie didn't really help because she was constantly saying how she found me in this magazine and all this. So it just sounded like really, it just, you know, it didn't sound like I was hired on merit whatsoever. But the thing that I knew I had to break that stigma, and the thing that kind of got me over with the boys was that like I improved so quickly, you know, and I would have guys like AJ and Joe and Abyss, you know, and Bobby Roode and James Storm like constantly come up to me and you're improving, like you're the most improved guy I've ever seen, you know, you've improved so quickly and so fast. And I guess like I didn't really think about it, because that's the way I've always been with every sport I did, and every endeavor I've sort of gone after. It was like, you only get better by being around good people.
Yeah.
In, you know, a lot of ways, like I've always been asked, you know, do you think things would have been different if you'd have not gone to TNA and tried WWE or whatever? And I always said I wasn't ready for WWE back then. I wasn't ready for TNA. You know, so obviously wasn't ready for WWE, and it would have been, that wouldn't have been the smart decision, because I didn't have any experience, and I still believe that as great as their performance center is, and what a brilliant concept, you know, and I think that is, and it's like I would kill to have access to a facility like that.
Yeah.
I still believe that you've got to have some experience in the business. And now for me, I've got to wrestle Sting. I was one of the only guys I believe I'm one of only two people that holds a submission victory over Sting. You know what I mean? And like that's huge. Like I can't even describe like what that meant to me, that Sting basically said, this is the way I want it to go, and I want him to win with the cloverleaf in the middle of the ring, and because he deserves it, and then I want you to basically, I want you to pull the trigger with him and make him the world champion.
I mean,
you know, and it was like that Sting pretty much, push that along, and Kurt Angle, like I got to work with so many great guys, early on, like Booker T and Scott Steiner, and then I got to be mentored a lot by Jeff Jarrett. He's done a hell of a lot for me, especially when we went to India. You know, he really mentored me a lot and gave me a real confidence boost, kind of got me to the next level.
I mean, speaking of that next level, obviously, as you say, when you started, when TNA at first, and I mean, you would describe yourself as green in that respect, but yet, when AJ had his last match with the company, it was with you, and when Sting had his last match with the company, it was with you. How good a feeling for it was it for you to know that even in that short period of time, that the company knew that you were someone that they could rely on in these big pressure situations?
I don't know if I don't know if I don't know if well the circumstances around that were not if the circumstances had been different I would have felt that way, but
Yeah,
um, I don't mean to sound ungrateful, but I don't know if it was as much about them having faith in me or whether it was just I was a convenient person to kind of have that it was
yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah,
easy person to have the heat on at least. Like um, there was some very unfortunate circumstances around the AJ thing.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I've talked about it now. I've talked about it in an FSM with Brian. So
Yes,
I'm
yeah.
gonna talk about it now. But
No, no, no.
I suffered a concussion when I won the night I won the title from it, in the match with Jeff in the cage match or the cage ladder match, whatever it was,
Yeah,
Dixie. Um, and it was rough. Like I didn't, I was pretty much on autopilot. I didn't really, and I couldn't. I was in a bad way. It's again, I've stated this before, but I'll state it, unequivocally that I've never suffered one before or since. I recovered completely. I had, plenty of time off, and I've never been injured. I've never missed a date. I've never injured another wrestler. It's like and it was just one of those freak things, and it was
yeah,
totally my. I just kind of planted my foot wrong, taking Jeff's head scissors. He does like flying head scissors out the
yeah,
corner, and I just kind of got my foot. I was nervous, and I got my foot just kind of planted in the. Sometimes that happens, I just got my foot kind of jammed in the canvas a little bit, so I just didn't quite rotate enough, and I just bonked right on the top of my head, and it was just one of those things where it was like I knew immediately like something felt different, like it was weird. By the time I came back, Scott Demore, who was my agent at the time, um, he had come down because he knew I was going to win the title. He had come down to Orlando, and he and another Scott, actually, who was a medic. They they had like they were trying to pull me in like 5 different directions to go and do like some promo, do a promo and stuff.
yeah,
And I've seen the promo back then, but I don't remember it. Like I've seen it, but I don't remember doing it. And as
yeah,
soon as it was done, like Scott and the and medic Scott were both like, you need to like what's your name, like where were you born, like like you need to come and sit down, everybody get away from him, like they could see like I had
yeah,
a cut, and obviously that then meant that we weren't able to do what we were supposed to do with AJ, because it's my understanding that the match with AJ was supposed to be a straight up match, and then obviously that wasn't possible.
yeah,
So they did the best thing they thought they could do, and it's like like you can't go back and change it. Like it I do whatever I do what I'm told. I did whatever was I did whatever was asked of me, and I think that and it was like it got a good rating, I guess. Like a lot, like pretty much my whole time as champion got good ratings with Spike, and and that's something that I can be proud of. But it was like it just kind of set the tone for a different sort of direction. And then I guess I don't know whether they just felt like they had to do the same thing for Sting because they'd done it for AJ or what. I don't know what it was, but I I don't feel good about being the guy, the
yeah,
last
yeah,
guy that they
yeah,
saw on the way out, because it wasn't wrestling. It was just an angle. I like to think of for me my memories of working with Sting 2013, which was my best year
yeah,
in TNA, which was the working with him in the Mafia, and then going through to wrestling him at Bound for Glory was some of my favorite some of my favorite time in wrestling my career, and that's the way that's my memory of it.
Yeah. I mean, TNA obviously recently signed a new deal with Destination America, and off the back of that, once everything was all sorted and so on, you were announced for their tour of the UK here in early 15. Now, I assume, have you re-signed with them, or did your contract roll over? Was there no issue in that respect?
No, I haven't. I'm still under contract.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I have no. I mean, there's been no discussion of any of that. No, I don't. I think. I mean, I guess. I already knew I was booked for the tour. I think I was one of the first people advertised for it when the dates were first booked. I think it was just one of those things where they just kind of, when they did the finalized revised lineup. I don't know, but there's no, as of now as of right now I still have a contract. That's about as much as I'm willing to discuss.
No, I appreciate that. I wasn't fishing. It was the genuine question, because obviously I had some stuff arranged for when we were going to talk when you're in Belfast and so on. It was just I was rewording stuff, and I thought that. I mean, obviously, you're still you're still really young, and you will hopefully have a lot of time left in your career. Obviously, I mean, you've wrestled in Japan, and you've held titles in Japan, and obviously, say, with whether it was the global title, or sorry, Pro Wrestling Noah, or with and other titles and so on. What do you have? What goals do you have for your future that you would like to achieve? Do you want to do more in Japan, or do you want to keep building in the US, just to keep building up your reputation over there?
I think I by the time I did. It's funny. You can never really have you can have sort of long term aspirations, I guess, but it's hard to it's hard to set definitive kind of long term goals. Like like I've never been much of a venue guy. Like I know you always hear people say, oh, every wrestler wants to wrestle at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
I guess that would be cool, but it's not like I'm not gonna like beat myself over the head with it if I don't. But I'd like to wrestle at the Tokyo Dome. Just I stayed at the Tokyo Dome Hotel when we've done shows there in sumo, and it's amazing. It's unbelievable. I love Japan, and Tokyo is an amazing city. So that there are a lot of things. I mean, there are a lot of things. I sort of feel like I'm really sort of scratching the surface. As far as like my career, it's like I've done. I've had a fair amount, of success with this organization, and you could argue that maybe I've done everything I could do, but then you never know, because there's always new challenges. And I've got, obviously, I just turned 28 last month. And I think that, like, I feel like physically I'm like the probably the best I've ever felt, like just because I'm peaking and maturing.
Yeah.
But also, just in terms of, like, I think in this last, since I had the title, and there was a few times where I had some really wacky creative that I really had to make the best of, which everybody does at some point. Everyone has to make salad out of chicken shit at some point. And that's not to say that their writing is bad. It's just that there are certain things that just work for you. It's just because everyone has their own taste. So there are certain things that, like, certain wrestlers really like to do, and then there are other things that other wrestlers really like to do. But I think that when I had from pretty much from for the last year or so, I've really felt like I'm confident now. Like, I know what I'm doing. Like, I can be given pretty much, like, any opponent, any task. I can make anyone look good, I feel confident now that like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a strange thing to say. I know, but I also like I've been doing a lot to sort of broaden my game. You know, I've been taking some private gymnastics coaching, and I've been doing some I've been doing some different training methods, and I've been sort of working on some new stuff, and working on just I think it's time to reinvent,
Yeah.
and that's and then we'll see what opportunities come out of that. I obviously have, like any kid, could grow up in England. You know where my dream was. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
know what that. Any kid that wants to get into wrestling, but it's like, if like I'm confident that I deserve an opportunity, but whether it, and whatever happens next, and that's sort of where, and that's always the way I've looked at things.
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate. I wanted to state this because I hear sometimes, so a lot of these podcasts and stuff, and I love listening to all the, I think it's great. I think it's, for a wrestling fan like me, it's just like awesome to hear all these different people. But
Yeah.
one of the things that kind of that baffles me sometimes is you hear this thing a lot of the time. You hear like, oh, there's really only one place to earn a living.
Yeah.
Maybe there's only one place to become a millionaire. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's only one place to make Stone Cold Steve Austin money. Maybe potentially.
Yeah.
But I'd like to say that I've enjoyed for the last couple of years with TNA, I've enjoyed a 6-figure income with my hotels and rental cars paid for, and opportunities to do outside projects. So it's they've been good to me in a lot of ways. It's and that's really what it comes down to. It's like a business decision. I've never been like, I'm not somebody who, like, I don't identify myself, like, as far as I'm concerned, like, I'm Nick Aldis, a sports entertainer, like a performer in sports entertainment who's an independent contractor available for hire, like, if I'm a free agent.
Yeah.
I'm not, this person. I'm not like, I try not to, to paint myself in, with any colors or anything like that. I'm just, for me, I think I'm a good prospect, I happen to get into the business at a young age, which has its good and bad points.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm a 28-year-old, independent contractor in the sports entertainment business, and I'm always gonna, I've got a good amount of experience for a guy my age, and I'm only getting better all the time, and I'm always looking for new opportunities, and that's pretty much the way I've always felt.
Yeah. Speaking of which, and I appreciate we've been on for nearly 3/4 of an hour. I've just realised. But you spread your wings a little more in the last year or two, doing some presenting here in the UK with UK's Strongest Man and so on. That's almost from my own personal point of view. I just wondered, how did that come about? How did you end up getting that gig?
It was through challenge. I believe it was through Paul Benson, who was he's a guy who works, he works for a company called RDA, who they sell TNA to overseas markets.
Yes.
He's kind of he's sort of the liaison between sort of Sky and TNA. And I don't I like, the first I recall of it was him just kind of shooting me a quick text saying like, hey, just giving you a heads up, like, I threw your name in the hat for, to present UK Strongest Man. Like, is it something and I was like, absolutely. And then Dixie called me a few days later and said, we want you to, like, we want you to go do this. So that was the first, that was the first one I did. And then I did it again I did it twice. I did it again the next year, and that time I just kind of negotiated it, independently
Yeah.
of TNA. But that's been a good thing, and I've been able to, and I back in 2012, I was able to go and do Aladdin at the Theatre Royal, which was great,
Yeah.
and also, just to be able, like, at the time TNA when they had a working relationship with AAA, I was able to go down to Mexico a few times and do some shows for AAA, and then to go to Japan and do those shows. That's a nice benefit, because you own that. To me, I want to be a complete wrestler. I want to be a complete performer, and
Yeah.
that's the best way to do it, is to go and establish yourself in those other markets. Plus, it means that you can cultivate those relationships and kind of, and I've got a huge amount of respect for Conan, who was always good to me when I went down there, and and the guys in the Noah office were very good to me, very generous, and so it's all just it's all experience.
Just as we tie everything up and so on, do you have any words for your fans, and obviously in how they can ways that they can keep up to date with what you're up to or with your schedule and so on?
Um, sure. Yeah, I mean, you can follow me on Twitter at Magnus Official. I just got on Instagram a little while back. It's under my name. It's at Nick Aldis. And then my website is nickaldis.com. And there's a you can email me on there. Like, you can send emails to nick@nickaldis.com if you want to, get in touch with me for, and I enjoy getting, I get some really, really nice, like, heartfelt messages every now and then from fans, and it's, and I always do my best to try and respond to them. And I signed a publishing deal a few months back with Pitch Publishing for a fitness book, which is gonna be released in the new year. I'm still finishing writing it, because I'm busy collecting up. That it's going to be unique. It's not just going to be like, it's not just a cash in kind of fitness book.
Yeah.
Like, hey, listen to me. Like, I'm collecting up all kinds of quotes and advice and different tidbits from all kinds of different people in all walks of life. Olympic athletes, professional bodybuilders, fitness models, trainers, even doctors and chiropractors and stuff. So I'm really, I enjoy writing, and that's been a really great thing. And I'm looking forward to the release of that in the new year, and kind of going hard on the promotion for that, and trying to make that a top seller, because I think because I wouldn't have, I've toyed with the idea before, and I've been approached about one before, but I turned it down, because I wanted to have enough time to do it right, and I also wanted to do it at a time where I felt like my writing skills were better. And now that I've been writing the column for FSM for 6.5 years or something like that, it's now, my writing skills are so much better now, and I've really enjoyed, writing this book. But it's going to be called The Superstar Body, and that's going to be coming out in the new year.
Well, that's awesome. Well, as I say, thank you so much for giving me quite a chunk of your afternoon today. It has been much appreciated.
Yeah, no problem.